Greetings and welcome to the Home Slice. This is a standard intro. If you already know what's up with my 40mm manila rope testing, the ANDE rope test, then you can skip to this time listed on screen. This is where the actual edge test begins. If you haven't been here before, then you've caught me in the middle of a testing series where I'm taking Victorinox knives because they're simple steel that's mainly just steel. There's not a bunch of extra alloys and carbide things going on in them. And I'm testing what different sharpening stones do to them. I'm testing fine, medium, and coarse stones individually. Then I'm taking the best from those and I'm making what's called a dual grit edge. If you're new to the channel, a dual grit edge is where you sharpen one side coarse or medium and the other side of the edge you sharpen fine. It has some really interesting characteristics. Usually it creates an aggressive edge that lasts longer than it normally would with either coarse or fine, with some exceptions, which we're testing to find out. Anyway, my test consists of, I've got a little goofy rig that I slice through a 1 centimeter thick sisal rope, and it's on a 45-degree wedge. It's intended to transfer that force down, and then I measure how many kilograms of pressure it took to slice through the rope while holding the rope vertical. That's intended to take forward motion and quantify how much pressure it took to slice through. This gives you some rough idea of edge aggression. The next test is to cut through a 40mm thick manila rope, and then I test on a Best machine tester to test how keen and nice the edge stayed. I do that until it's over 400 grams on the Best tester, checking with microscope and checking to see when it loses shaving capability in between tests. After 3, I will hammer the edge into a pine piano leg, and that's just to see if any of the edges break on impact. There are certain sharpening methods I've found that create an edge that's not as robust to impact tasks, and I want to kind of weed those out because for a working edge, I want it to be reasonably durable. Anyway, that's what we're testing for today. In just a second, we'll skip right over to the test footage, and I will let you know what the finishing stone that we're actually testing was. Hello friends, today we've got a test of the Shapton Glass 8000 grit stone. Very cool stone. Came off the unloaded kangaroo strop at 100 grams Best for a very good initial edge, though not quite as keen as the Japanese natural stone we saw last episode. Also quite good on the initial aggression figures, sliding through the rope after we hit this 3.0 for a total of 1.0 kgs or 1000 grams, which is just barely over that Japanese natural we saw last time. Probably the most beautiful edge I've seen under the microscope so far, although the lighting isn't perfect. The finish and shine of this edge was quite good, and the edge does look pretty even with minimal scoops, cracks, chips, etc. It still proved fairly aggressive, though it did not shave after one pass, and it totally blew my mind with this first reading of 245 grams. That's a Best so far in the testing, so very good aggression for a fine edge on this Shapton Glass 8K. On pass number 2, we're flirting with that 400 gram line, not very close to the Best anymore, but this is sort of characteristic of the waterstones that I've seen so far. The fine waterstones seem to round over more quickly. But we're just skirting past that 400 line, and we make it through the 3 passes without crossing over, and so we will be on for one more cut of the ANDE rope, and I have to say the aggression of this Shapton stone was great. I've frozen it there at 8.3 kg as the max reading. Very good results. If you calculate out the loss of aggression, it hits 5.3 kilos, which is nearly as good as the Veneve 7.5, which is our highest contender so far. Very rare for a conventional waterstone to be measuring this good in aggression. Which still looks pretty beautiful to me under the microscope. If you see little glints of light along the apex, that's often characteristic telltale signs of bending, and they're very minimal off the Shapton Glass 8K, much better than a lot of stones that I have seen, being that I'm not stropping an intense like 30 stroke regiment for this testing. Next up is the edge toughness test, and after 9 5 kg smashes into the pine piano leg, we find that the Shapton Glass 8000 grit edge has come to a new best score of 359 grams. So good job, Shapton 8K. This sawdust that you see passing by on the grind of the knife there is from the outside of where the knife penetrated along the piano leg, and this portion that bit into the piano leg indeed does look fairly unused and still a fairly crisp edge with pretty minimal bending. Overall, I really liked the Shapton Glass 8K, and it's one of the very best fine edges that I have produced so far in my sharpening. I've tried on a few dual grit edges and haven't quite worked out what stones to combine it with or what strops to pull the best out of it, but a very good and crisp fine edge indeed. 410 grams brings us to the end of the test. If you'd like to see my last test, I'll put it on screen now. For the rest of you, peace out from the home slice.